Coach M, welcome to the Way Champions podcast.
Absolute pleasure to be here, mate. Thanks for having me.
I love having you on. We got connected through a mutual friend, Marley Woods, and she said you have to meet Coach M. You're gonna love her. And I had the opportunity to be on your podcast talking about all things coaching and leadership and sport. And so I'm really glad that you are able to come here and listen and be a part of our audience's growth and development as well.
Yeah, no, I'm listening to your show and it's great to be on because Marley spoke about you not just recently, over many years actually. So it's nice to finally get connected and, of course, provide some value to your audience, hopefully.
Yeah, well, I'm excited. Now, your background is in the tennis world, both as a very good tennis athlete and then a coach. Maybe just tell people a little bit about your sporting journey, so that they can understand your leadership and coaching journey.
Yeah. So I think the first thing reflecting back is I really grew up multi-sport girl. So in Australia, of course, cricket, and football, and my dad and I played hours and hours of backyard games. And but also I grew up in Australia, then the UK, and then back to Australia, and then the UK, and then back to Australia. And that was in those those primary school, high school years, and I got exposed to lots of different sports. So one minute it was soccer, and one minute it was AFL, and
Mm-hmm.
then it was rounders. If anyone knows what that is, softball with a short bat.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's real value just in that backstory because definitely I can pretty much play most of them, but I would say I'm the master of none of them.
Mm-hmm.
So it was one of those early moments where I think exposing kids to lots of different sports is quite valuable. So I share that. And I also share the fact that even though I wasn't in the under 12s even making a national level in tennis, at the age of 10, I started to really play it. And I was part of an environment, a very unique club where simply one of the girls' mums was a teacher. And so she just had a bit of a way of how to create culture and how to create fun and how to create a social environment where you could rock up at the club and someone would be there for you to practice with. And you'd sort of organize your own practices because it wasn't so over scheduled. So there's some of my early memories of being a part of something really special. And equally, I had that moment where you realize that, hey, I'm not as good as the best players, even in my local, say, my state, the state of Victoria, until finally, as I got a little bit older, they potentially, unfortunately, started dropping out, which is a whole nother story of why I started my girl power camps. But the value of loving the sport and loving the journey, because you never know where it could lead.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really important point. Because of the vehicle of tennis and because of the great sport of tennis, for me, I feel like I'm just an ordinary girl living an extraordinary life because of a sport and
Mm-hmm.
the opportunities that it opened up. So that was a little bit about my early playing days, and to say that my first part-time job after my paper round was a tennis coach.
Mm.
And I was very fortunate that my coach let me coach one night a week so that I could learn the new kick serve that had just come out. And I jumped at the opportunity and essentially had that early moment where I want to be a coach.
Mm.
This is the greatest job in the world. I get to have fun, play. And it was an extremely impactful moment. And then moving to getting into the course of my dreams, sports coaching and administration at Deakin University. And I had my first real slap in the face when the course coordinator, very famous football coach, David Parkin, asked me a question I'll never forget. And I invite your listeners to reflect on it. He simply said, have you maximized your playing potential? Have you become the best tennis player
Mm-hmm.
you can be? And I was like, absolutely not. I'm
Mm-hmm.
now only starting to hit my, my straps, and I'm stronger. I'm the fittest I've ever been. And the next thing you know, I was on a plane from Melbourne, Australia, to Murfreesboro, Tennessee, literally because it was the first coach that rang me back.
Mm-hmm.
And I jumped at the opportunity and that was a very early moment that sort of, I guess, bridges the gap between my playing career and the start of my coaching career. So
It's
to maximize my value as a player was so important for him to see my potential as a coach.
Yeah. Well, I think it's also such an interesting, we talk oftentimes on here about these sort of rule of one moments, one person, one comment, one time, right? And that coach's comment, have you maximized, have you done everything you're capable of doing? Again, still sticks with you all these years later. Like that was a life-altering moment. Now, if we
Was
asked him, do you remember saying this to Emma? No
no,
chance he remembers that, right? But this is coaching, right? We never know when the student is ready. So we have to be so intentional about what we say and when we say it and how we say it, because this might be the moment that sticks. And that's a scary responsibility as a coach sometimes.
it's an enormous responsibility, and that's
Enormous.
why there's no greater honor than this profession. So
Yeah.
hats off to anyone listening. This is hard. This is passion. This is long hours. It's dedication because we care.
Is it a profession? I mean, I saw Richard Bailey do a talk on this once and I loved it. We did something for the PGA together years ago and he said, well, like, what's a profession, right? Well, what do professionals do, right? If a doctor, okay, the medical profession, well, what do? They go to school, they get licensed, they get certified, they do continuing education, they keep going, right, to get better, to stay up to date with the latest and greatest. Do coaches do that? I would say most don't. That was his argument. He's like, you would do to a lot of people don't go to school for it. Maybe people,
Yeah.
you know, do some licensing, but then they stop learning and they just stay still. Like they treat, well, it's a profession because I get paid.
It's very interesting, especially being from the tennis and that sporting background and now being in the corporate coaching space.
Hmm.
What comes up for me in listening to you here, John, is identity.
Yeah.
And I think this is an important topic, especially for parents listening, potentially around, oh, my daughter, she's the tennis player, my son, he's the musician, and the third one came along and there was no jeans left. So they're the, no, it's a joke, of course. So as a tennis coach, there were times where I am a tennis coach,
Hmm.
was all consuming, where I had no life and it's not healthy. And there were definitely moments there, and I'm not, and coaching is all consuming, and the identity piece around it, I'm okay with the word profession because in many ways right now I'm choosing to be in the corporate business coaching space, and that
Hmm.
is my profession. It's not who I am.
Yeah. Well,
So,
what I would say is, and so I don't want to be wrong on that. Like when I look at your corporate coaching background and I read your bio and it'll be in the show notes here. It's like you have education, you have certification, like you are pursuing being better at that all the time. You have your own podcast where you're interviewing people to learn from them as well. So it's like you are maybe the best way to say it is so many coaches, and I would go point more towards sports coaches, call it a profession, but don't act like a professional.
oh, 100% agree with that.
Yeah,
I call it the junkyard dog coach. And in tennis, they're rife. And Australia does have a very good coach education system,
it
and
does. It's
America
very good.
is
Yeah.
in tennis is actually there are a lot of changes happening right now. But over the years, you could literally get your tennis coaching license out of a cereal box on one weekend, which I
Hmm.
did back in 1998 in Georgia. And having said that, many people don't even have that.
Hmm.
So from that perspective, I, I'm on totally think that we need to, even if you're listening to this podcast and you're not qualified, get a qualification in anything to do
Hmm.
with people, anything to do with people. Just start one step at a time. So, yeah, I'm definitely on board with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you said there at the end as well is anything to do with people because coaching is a people business. Coaching, and then again, we're going to keep our focus around sport coaching, but people are people, and moving people in a direction, inspiring, communicating, motivating, whatever it is, whether it's to be better at sales number or to win more games or compete harder, it's the same thing. It's still people are motivated by similar things. And so I think it's really interesting that so many in the sports coaching realm maybe just do that initial qualification or nothing at all, or say, well, I played for all these years. Fantastic. But that has nothing to do with teaching it to someone else. That's just your experience.
Well, curiosity is the superpower of the modern leader,
Yeah.
the modern coach. If you are not curious, then to be a lifelong learner, this is something that there's no excuse for
Mhm.
not investing and putting time in your diary. I know we're all time poor, but map out. I have curiosity time in my diary, whether that's listening to a podcast, reading a book, reaching out to somebody who I know is where I want to go and short circuiting their experience. Because one of my favorite definitions of confidence is self belief equals time plus experience.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you
Say
can't
that
short
again.
circuit.
Say that again. I like that.
So the confidence formula is self belief equals time plus experience.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can't short circuit somebody's time. Monday can't go any quicker than Tuesday, Wednesday. There's deliberate practice. And of course, there is purposeful practice, which is important. And the one thing you can short circuit is the experience of others.
Mm.
So, by anyone who's listening to this, you are being curious by listening to it. And you're saying, okay, what's one takeaway, something small that I could add to my own coaching toolkit and see what works for me. So then you can, as you would, or as Jerry would say, so you could be a flute,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
spread that message out to the world and add it to your own toolkit. And so I'm always fascinated in who is a coach that where I want to go and who I want to be like and how can I learn from, especially I know this podcast is mainly sports. You introduced me to a coach in Colorado. I went out to watch the Colorado, they're called Real Colorado, the team,
Mm-hmm.
and the coach Mark out there. Fantastic energy, looking at how he organized the environment and what was he saying. I was trying to get as close as I could without interrupting, of course, and just learning the look and learning how things work and short circuiting the experience, taking one thing that I could add to my own coaching toolkit. That is how we build confidence over time.
Yeah.
And that I learned that when I was 23 from a mentor, and it's never ever let me down. That
Yeah.
formula.
No, I think it's such a that idea of experience, that idea of, getting the reps in, um, challenging yourself, not being comfortable. I mean, I just think someone asked me the other day, when's the last time you learned something new? Right? Like and it just kind of stops you. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm dabbling in guitar. That's new for me, but not super intentionally or structured where, I just kind of pick it up for a little bit here or there and whatever. But yeah, how important it is to learn something new as a coach, to remember what it's like to not know something, how important it is to experience curiosity. I know you're a Ted Lasso fan, and the sort of be curious, not judgmental, is such a wonderful coaching statement, right? Instead of judging, why aren't you performing today? What's wrong with you? Why don't you care? It's, hey, Em, this is not like you. What's going on today? What a different question you'll learn so much more from that.
And just to pick up for the audience in case they missed it in what you said, the first example was three why questions, and then the next one was a what question.
Yeah.
And if we want to empower, especially the inner voice and the minds of young athletes and especially teenagers that are so the matching mirroring concept is so important that we lead by example. That allows people to create their own solutions, accountability, options. They can problem solve because of the way that you even just cared about asking them what's going on. And it's such a different feeling. It's curiosity over judgment. The judgment is why. So just a quick tip if you're not aware of the truth about why questions, they're brilliant
Hmm.
after something's gone well.
Hmm.
Knock yourself out, go for it. Hey, we beat this team today. Why did you make that pass? Why did you make that play? Why did that happen? Go nuts. And if something's gone wrong, ask a what, when, where, who question to get the facts. And then as quick as you can, in my TEDx talk, I talk about the power of next time. Just throw next time in front of anything. It's a future-based question, and it's another little practical, easily implementable, is that even a word?
Hmm.
Tomorrow. So something you can do. It's
It's
important for me to always give value even on podcasts like this. What are the quick little turbo tips that people
Yeah, a little tip, a
that are
little
sticky?
tool, and
Uh-huh.
that one right there is such a good one. When things are going well, the why is great. When things are not going, haven't gone as well, the what went well and what needs work
Hmm.
is more
Next
powerful
time.
than, why didn't you or why whatever. So yeah, I really like that. That's a really good one. Um, what about like in your transition to coaching? I mean, you coached 20 times internationally for Australia. Talk about your role as a coach, the ages of those athletes that you were coaching, and what was that like going from athlete to coach?
So, well, first of all, I'll just mention that I probably took away hundreds of Australian teams. That was just 20 of the world championships.
Hmm.
And make no mistake about it, I didn't go straight to the Billie Jean King Cup squad, right?
Hmm.
First took away the under 10s in my
Yeah.
local region.
Yeah.
Then I took all of my local region. Then I went to the state championships under 12s. Then my first national coaching job was under 12s.
Hmm.
And then it was the under 14s team.
Hmm.
So I've only ever met three girls in my life where I said, you have to step up and win for Australia today.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, in other words, just let's not undervalue stretching the comfort zone versus throw yourself in the deep end and let's hope that you swim. Okay, so that's just one starting point over my journey of no greater honor than wearing the green and gold, right?
But I think it's worth noting, and I thank you for sharing that because so many times, like people, it's very easy as a young coach to be like, I want to start with the best. Like, look at me, look what I did. Especially someone who's achieved a lot in sport thinks they should skip those steps. But I think those steps are the most important because you learn that everyone's journey was not like yours, and it's different, and you get a ton out of, you know, realizing, look at all these people, and then all of a sudden, wow, that 10-year-old who was a little shy and not so big and whatever, look at them at 18. Like, but if I was forced at 10 to pick which kid was going to make it, wouldn't have been that kid. And yet here they were. And then, so then you are forced to think back, well, what was it about them that maybe I didn't value as much that was most important? So it's such, so I just wanted to highlight that for people. Like, don't skip the steps.
Because also it's your pilot, it's your place where you can
Yeah.
sometimes maybe experiment with something on that doesn't work and then you okay, oh, that didn't work, I won't do that next time. So
Hmm.
obviously as coaches we're always failing,
Hmm.
so I'm not saying you ever have the perfect experience, although one tour I potentially nearly did, so I'll get to that in a minute. But I share in those early days, I guess for me, I had a coaching lens, Kat, from a very early age. So even when I was a college coach, our coach was didn't have necessarily the resort that many resources, many tools in his toolkit. So I
Hmm.
was sort of mainly helping our team as well in that space. And when I then transitioned onto taking all of those teams away, the one thing, first of all, that I'm extremely proud of, and I again had this early moment off court where I learnt this from a corporate coach about the power of values and those values being voted on by the players
Hmm.
that then defined the behaviors that then was what the tour was all about.
Hmm.
So I can tell you that many. I can tell you a number of tours where we were the Reese's peanut butter team, which stood for personal growth, respect, and balance.
Hmm.
We were the FFF team. They liked with a team which stood for firm but fair but fun
Hmm.
team. So the values and the behaviors is one thing that I think is a bit of a through line in terms of those early days. The other thing about those early days with all of those teams is that I was like, why do I bring out the best in you for? But I'm struggling to bring out the best in you for. And don't forget, we're Australia. We're 6 weeks on the road with
Yeah.
these players, and I wasn't. And as for the parents, no one had taught me anything about how to communicate with high performing parents. So,
Hmm.
so it really wasn't until I had a deep dive, talk about again, almost going back to school studying. I did a certification in emotional intelligence, neuro-linguistic programming, and workplace and business coaching. I did a diploma in that, and took a deep, heavy dive into this stuff. That it sort of when it catapulted me back to tour coaching, the epiphany and the aha moment for me was when I realized that I had to adapt my communication for each individual. Now, I know
Hmm.
a lot of people say they're player centered coach, and then I go watch them coach, and I'm thinking that doesn't look like player centered to me, right? What I mean is simply who's in front of me and
Hmm.
how do I adapt my communication to bring out the best in that person in that moment.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the last team I took away, you couldn't get more girls so different.
Hmm.
And we were the incredible raging elephants, improvement, respect, and enjoyment. All our, again, little subtle things like no mobile phones on the dinner table. We had to ask each other questions as well as culture. Had to ask the Malaysian Uber drivers one question about culture each day and didn't hang out in the lobby, just the absolute energy drainer and sucker is a lobby of a hotel when all countries are there. And we ate breakfast before any other country, right? So these are the subtleties from a management perspective and from a coach leadership perspective.
Hmm.
It really felt like I had multiple personality disorder at the end of the week. I didn't know who I was
Hmm.
because of the adaptation. So I share there, I guess, a little bit of failure in my own self-reflection as a coach and what I did about it to to do a much better job. I definitely would have the Titanic would have sunk if I had taken that team away when I was in chapter 1 of my career.
Yeah.
So I'm very proud of those types of stories. And your original question was about transitioning from athlete to
Well, no, but this is a great, like, let's just
right.
go. Like, we can just go on
Okay.
this because I think everything you said is so critical, whether it's the corporate space or whether it's the sporting space. It doesn't mean that I have to be perfect. It just means, uh, you know, my ability to connect with an athlete is on a scale, and it's not just yes or no. And so I want to dial up that as much as possible. So the more I can give you what you need, communicate with you the best you are, give you feedback the way that, you will benefit from it, timing and content and delivery, the higher the dial goes, right? It doesn't mean you're getting nothing out of this, but I want to give you as much as possible so that you're going to perform the best that you can for yourself and for the team. And this is it. And I don't want coaches to think that they need to have a detailed notebook on each kid. And certainly spending 6 weeks on a tour with a group, you really get to know them much better than a typical two practices a week and see on the weekend. But it doesn't mean that you can't pay attention, be curious, and say, huh, when I say, if I raise my voice in the middle of it to M, does she get better or worse? Does her chin come up or does she start looking down at her feet? I can notice that and be like, that didn't work, right? And then say, hey, M, what's the best way I can give you feedback during the match, right? Not that hard.
Brilliant question.
Yeah.
Brilliant question. And I get asked a lot about generational differences, and you just summarized really the key thing. What I often say back is ask them how do they define success. Ask them how would they like to be communicated to. How would
Mhm.
they prefer their feedback? How often they would prefer their feedback, and
Mhm.
you'll be able to see there might be some commonalities and there might be some differences there.
Mhm.
Let me just get on and do my job. Or yeah, you know what? I want regular feedback. Okay, great. In what how is it best for you to receive that?
Mhm.
And I think that they're the key questions that we need to be asking. I agree. You don't need to do 50 million personality profiles.
No. Yeah.
Or although I do have a cute one on tennis, just to help just four easy boxes. The aggressive baseline personality, the consistent, the all court, and the crowd pleaser, just to help coaches adapt their communication, not to put people in a box.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I just think this is the key, right? This is coaching is reaching that individual to the best of my ability with what I have in the moment and just paying attention. And like you say, I mean, I think about when I first started out and didn't think about any of this stuff, and it was one size fits all, and it was probably more about me than them and all that sort of stuff. And so, yeah, I look at the last teams I coached and going, oh, I was so much of a better coach for those kids because maybe my definition of success changed. Maybe my comfort with where I was. Maybe my I came to terms with what I did as an athlete and I was okay with it and I wasn't trying to live vicariously through the kids in front of me. All that stuff is super important.
And it's super important as a coach. Come back to values for a minute. Is that each year I do just pull out this deck of cards, all got values on it, and I just have like a subconscious flick.
Hmm.
Am I still valuing this always, sometimes, or rarely? And I build just a really small little pyramid to see where I'm at each year because
Hmm.
they change.
Yeah.
And it begins with that because that's the core of my that sets my beliefs, it sets my attitude, that sets the way that I behave, which is my results, and that equals my character. It's a simple formula, but it
Hmm.
all starts with what do I value and where do those values come from, and difference between living in Australia and living in the US as well.
The
Things change.
cultural, yeah, things. What do you wish you knew as a coach starting out that maybe you've learned from some of the leaders you've worked with, not just in sport, but in business? Because I feel like so many things we learn when we do our coaching certifications aren't really the most important thing or most important component of coaching. We're great at practice plans and periodization and
Mm.
this and that, but we're not great at, you know, true leadership.
Yeah, it's a great question. I actually did a LinkedIn poll about it 2 weeks ago. I
Oh, cool.
said, what would you tell your teenage self?
Yeah.
And it was really interesting to see the responses. And I do have a keynote in November coming up about this exact topic. So
Yeah.
I'm just at the moment doing my research and my preparation. When
Yeah.
I answered the question myself, the things that I wish I could tell my younger self is to not suppress my curiosity. We're
Mm.
born curious. And then as a young coach, I sat in so many meetings where I didn't speak up and I didn't ask questions because I felt like in my teenage years, my curiosity was suppressed, and this was because of the way that education was taught. And I was in the principal's office quite frequently in high school because I didn't learn the way they used to teach. So my curiosity just got diminished, and especially in my 20s, I think that I was maybe silently curious, which isn't as useful as being curious out in the world so you can learn and grow from others. That's one. Second thing, I wish I could tell my teenage self to not worry so much about what other people think.
Hmm.
It's always a big one. And the last one is the only way I know how to be successful is by taking action.
Hmm.
From a coach perspective, that was more about what I'd tell my teenage self. What I'd tell my young coach self is three really important things is the art of active, deep level, present listening and practice it. Even last night, I literally was doing a Tara Brach meditation, and she was saying if you want to enhance your deep level listening, just listen to sounds. Like, what a great little easy tip to sit in a park and what do you just follow the sound? What do you hear? The leaves, some, what's moving, what can you hear? I love that deep level listening tip. Number one. Number two, I tell my young coach self that empowering decision making in your players, your young players, or even adults, to be honest, is so critical if you want them to perform under any form of pressure.
Hmm.
It'll help them on the court, it'll help them off the court, which then leads to problem solving, obviously, problem solving environments. How can you continue to create problem solving environments? Because I think a beginning coach runs an activity and an experienced coach lives an activity.
I like.
So,
Mm.
what I would tell my young coach self is it's okay if the activity doesn't go perfectly. Just chaos is how kids learn best. And if you have a why yourself, a purpose, and you're intentional about your environment, many times the activity will do the teaching for you. So
Yeah.
less is more, the power of the pause,
Yeah.
and get rid of your verbal diarrhea.
So much to unpack here.
Sorry, that was a lot. I think I gave you
It's
like
great
eight.
though. And it's funny, and you know this as a podcast host as well. Balancing deep listening with also knowing what your next question is going to be, or do I need to pivot, is sometimes a really hard thing, and then you miss something good, and so then you listen, and then I'm just like, I forgot what I was going to ask, but this time I do remember. And so you queued up this thing about being curious as a young coach, and it just reminded me of a story going through my coaching certifications and sort of, and maybe it was the way that the courses were designed, where it was sort of like you just had to show how much you knew. It wasn't really there to learn as much as to show what you knew so you could pass on to the next level, right? So if I'm going to show what I know, asking questions and being curious is probably not the best thing to do. And yet I remember sitting in this lecture, and the most experienced national champion, World Cup winning coach, I was sitting in the back with my buddies with my feet up, being quiet, whatever. He was in the front row, taking notes, asking the questions, listening, learning. And I remember this moment. And Anson Dorrance was a coach, and he's been on, excuse me, been on the podcast a couple times. And I thanked him for this. Of course, he doesn't know. But that was like, wait a sec. That guy has done everything that I could ever hope to do as a coach. And he's asking questions, and I'm sitting in the back pretending I know it all. What's wrong with this picture, right? So I just that story queued that up for me so much. But you're what I wish I could tell my younger self, um, this deep listening, the decision making is something that comes to me. And I picture this because I know kids who have played tennis at a high level, and I've gone to matches, and my daughter played 1 year of tennis as a senior in high school, and I would go to her matches and see the kids who are so much better than them, but that their parents were living and dying every point, every moment, and you know, trying to coach them, trying to yell instructions, whatever it was, right? And it's like, when do you, like you said, if you empower decision making, that's how you'll eventually perform under pressure. When is your kid going to get reps to be a decision maker under pressure because you're making all the decisions, you're making all the suggestions right now? Like, at what point do we say, you know what, we should lose today so we learn and be better tomorrow? And I see so many parents in sports, we just can't lose today. And then they wonder why their kid can't make decisions under pressure later on. Well, you stole all the reps for the last 7 years.
This is why I run the podcast. Every other episode is with a sports coach, and I'm passionate about what you just summarized is such a passion area of mine to support coaches in the how. So
Hmm.
maybe they're on board or maybe they're curious about what we're talking about. And then it's
Hmm.
like, but how do I do that? Because even one national camp, we actually brought in like the best 14-year-old girls in the country, and we had a section on exposing them to all sides of the sport. We even exposed them to, we had them calling lines and experiencing what that would feel like. We had them
Hmm.
being ball kids when
Yeah.
we had the whole gamut. And then we said, right, you're going to now be a coach, so run a coach activity. And we did this over a course of a couple of years. Not one player ever did a decision making activity. And I was
Yeah.
like, what's wrong with this picture? You know, two cross court, one down the line, approach shot, volley, overhead. And I'm like, this is like 1980, and this was not 1980.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess what I'm saying is this is still such a huge, I don't know why it's not more commonplace when I watch tennis training, because correct me if I'm wrong, like in soccer, I mean, you got to make, the minute you see the ball, you have to make a decision before you can execute the shot.
Yeah, the decision, the assessment, and then what are the solutions, and then pick one, all
Yep,
comes before technical execution. And yet
correct.
we just train technical execution in isolation from decisions and wonder
That's right.
why we can't plug it into the game on
That's right.
Saturday.
Do you
Yeah.
know how many times, if I had a dollar for every time a parent said to me, you know, if only my child could play like they do in practice,
Hmm.
because they look amazing. So two things I want to just throw out there. One, again, coming back to the how, right? Remember the confidence formula, yeah,
Hmm.
time plus experience. The experience of how do you embed decision making. So in tennis, you know, with our Rogi program, so red ball, roughly 5 to 8. I mean, not that I ever put an age on it, because the ball to
Hmm.
me is a tool. It's a training tool. And having said that, with the cognitive capacity, these are approximate, right?
Hmm.
5 to 8, two decisions. We're going to teach high low. We're going to teach left right. We're going to teach cross line. We're going to teach hard soft. We're
Hmm.
going to teach forehand backhand, right?
Hmm.
Two decisions. Orange ball, which is more that 7 to 10, three decisions. Now the court becomes longer, right? It's the same width. So now we're going to teach rally, attack, defend. Three decisions. Let's encourage three decisions. And then once we're 10 plus, I've got the cognitive capacity to understand who you are. So now I can make more open decisions around my game style and your weakness. Whereas if I'm a 7-year-old, I don't yet even understand who you are, right?
Hmm.
So it's all about me and my world. So the decisions are about me.
Hmm.
To me, orange is about the shape of the court, three decisions, and then that green book. So there's a framework. You don't have to agree with anything I say. You just have to be curious. That's my experience as a coach. I bring a framework as a starting point for you to explore that in the how piece on decision making.
Yeah.
And there was
Well,
one really
well,
other
well, while you're
important point.
thinking of that, I think One of the best tennis stories I've ever heard was Andre Agassi talking about how he was able to return Boris Becker's serve,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that he noticed if he was going, left, he would put his tongue in the left corner of his mouth, and right, down the middle, he was doing there or whatever. And just he noticed that. Now that came from an environment where he was taking in so many cues,
Yeah.
right? That he was just ready to, that he could do that, and then never, and that wouldn't happen today because of all the video and everything. But Becker never knew. He's like, how is this guy able to return my serve? And but Agassi, that assessment of an environment is not something that came from rote drilling balls, and being told, now hit it here, now hit it here, now hit it here. That's some sort of environment where he had the creativity and the space to go, how can I, what's my solution for this? And then to notice a pattern and then to exploit that pattern. I mean, it's brilliant. I just love that story.
Yeah. Well, that's how I coach. Even I can't help myself. I'm still on a tennis court, only a couple of hours a month, right? But I'm
Mhm.
still out there coaching because of the importance. Even these beginner ladies picked it up during COVID. That I mean, we do go for margaritas every 4 weeks, right? But
Mhm.
the point of the story is that I treat them with that same mentality of the beginner athlete in
Mhm.
a way where their decision making's been empowered from day one.
Yeah.
They're like, "Aren't you going to show me how to hold it and how to stand?" And I'm like, "Well, just show me what you got and
Yeah.
just stand how you stand." And then if I see something, then I'll ask you a curious question and see what you can solve it on your own to work out what's going to work best for you. And the decision making piece is just so important because in life, and every one of my lessons always has a life lesson. I can't help myself. You are going to be under pressure. You are going to have to make decisions. You are going to have to problem solve. And so this early opportunity that we have when kids are a sponge
Mhm.
is something I'm really passionate about helping and supporting coaches with.
Yeah. And I mean, move outside of the sports realm and the military realm. If I don't empower my soldiers to make decisions on the fly, um, yes, they have to follow orders, but they also have to adapt. If I don't have my, stock trader or bond trader the ability to go, oh, conditions just changed, I got to do something. If I'm always waiting for a sign off, I'm toast. And in sport, there's no time for a sign off. You got to solve that right away. Let me shift gears. Your TED Talk, Unleashing Female Potential. What inspired that, and why do we need to view how we treat our females as not a one size fits all of just, men and women are the same?
Mm, thank you for asking. The very quick backstory on the TED Talk is it was a moment of failure. Certainly didn't get into the first one that I applied for. But that started the concept of that, how they all have themes, as you know, was lead or follow, you decide. And I
Hmm.
did so much work on the application that it then served many keynotes anyway. But it
Yeah.
really had me thinking about as a coach, do we follow first and then, or do we lead first and follow and then have our players follow us, which was very much the traditional model that I grew up with.
Hmm.
So the whole concept of my favorite Gandhi quote, there go my people, I must follow them for I am their leader.
Hmm.
When I listen to my people, then I can follow them. And that was really the catalyst for me listening to the feedback on my application and then, failure, good story in failure, and then give it another go. And the that theme was called the tipping point.
Hmm.
And so it was 6 months preparation, 33 drafts over in 13 minutes,
Yeah,
right? It is one of
I
the
know.
hardest things. It is
Yeah.
one of the hardest things that you will do. So just putting that out there. It's
I
not as
I
easy
I I
as it
I
looks.
just my like I put 100 hours into the same thing, a 14-minute talk, right? Yeah.
It's a huge undertaking. And one last funny story about that was I was the first speaker and they'd forgot to close the doors, and about a minute or two in, this guy in a bright orange cowboy hat just comes walking down the center and sits in the front row. And I was like, what is a guy in a bright orange cowboy hat doing, walking in during my, and in that moment, instantly my mind went to that. And like my talk left me. Thank God
Yeah.
I did all that preparation, took a breath. I look
Yeah.
like I'm pausing for effect, and I'm definitely not. So I share all that again to say preparation, preparation, preparation when you really care about something is key. And coaching girls is no different
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's the cliche girls don't really care what you know until they know that you care.
Hmm.
And of course, we know boys need to play well to feel like they belong, and girls need to feel like they belong in order to play well.
Hmm.
So whether so and then within that, there's a bunch of individuals where subtle gender differences are important.
Hmm.
And one of my proudest moments is all the work I did around girl power camps and changing the way that we were delivering tennis as a product.
Hmm.
So it starts with vision boards. It starts with girls looking through tennis magazines and other sporting magazines and cutting out words and images that resonate with them. And then they start by sharing their vision board with the team before we even jump out on court.
Hmm.
So little subtleties in there to strengthen their inner voice. So
Hmm.
my TED talk is very much about how do we do that? How do we unleash this imprisoned female energy and its urgent need to express itself? And one of the ways that we do that is through future-based coaching. Because if
Hmm.
you ask a girl, why did you miss that shot? Why did you make that mistake? She'll give you a long list of pretty accurate, usually, reasons what happened. She already knows what she did wrong.
Hmm.
So just by flipping that and saying, hey, next time you're in that position, what are you going to do differently? Hey,
Hmm.
next time, what other options have you got? So two key words there, next time, to future base the questions,
Hmm.
empowers the way that they problem solve in a match.
Hmm. I
And
love
that
that.
is really key. And not many we need we need more coaches doing this when they're working with their girls, because it will strengthen the way that they talk to themselves. They're already, bravery versus perfection, one of my favorite TED talks. We have to encourage the language of bravery, of failure is okay, and we don't need to be perfect. We just need to get up and do it again, and get up and do it again. And if that's okay, how many times you get it wrong is fine within the guardrails. And I'm
Well,
yeah,
I think
really.
with females as well, this also there's really interesting research about how they, from very young age tend to congregate in pairs. And when you have a pair, we want equality in the relationship. Boys congregate in groups. And as long as I have a role in the group, um, I'm happy. So I can be the strong one, the funny one, the fast one, the smart one. And if you and I aren't getting along in the group, no problem. I can pivot to this person. Right. Well, because of that duality of female friendships and relationships from very young, newcomers to the group upset the relationship piece. But also, they're very cognizant of not wanting to let the group down. And I think at this age of 12 and 13, when so many girls drop out, they're hitting puberty, they're growing, they have this new body, they start struggling, they feel like they're not good anymore, they feel like they're letting the team down, whereas they walk away. And so it's a huge challenge in coaching I think a big part of unleashing female potential is coaching them through those critical years of, whereas boys in puberty tend to accelerate and get better, girls tend to plateau for a while. Coach them through the plateau and then they take off.
Absolutely. And you can only do that, I think, by providing some practical tools. Something as simple as anchoring and just bringing them back to the moment, and journaling and having them release those feelings. Yeah, I'm plateau, I feel stuck, I feel okay, great, let it all out. And what's the positive intention of that? Oh, you care. Okay, you still love the sport. All right. We keep chipping away, and when the time is, I don't know when that time will be, you're going to fly. I love that.
Yeah. 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 Awesome. Last little piece I want to talk about is your book, which is aptly titled "What Makes a Great Coach." The top 10 practices of the world's best coaches. So maybe you could share just two or three of what you see the best of the best doing. And I imagine we've covered some of them, but let's just kind of bring it home with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the first person that I asked was Roger Federer,
Yeah.
and he said someone who listens.
Mm.
And then I asked Judy Murray, and mother of Andy and Jamie, and both number ones in the world, and she said someone who listens. And then I flew to France to work with Serena Williams' coach, Patrick Mouratoglou, and he said you have to be able to hear what the player is thinking. I asked Billie Jean King, and listening came up again. So I was like, okay, so this was a real game changer for me. It was the catalyst for the podcast, the coaching podcast, where I ask all of my guests, including you, John. You said love, trust, vulnerability, and competence. And my three are energy, empathy, and enjoyment. So
Hmm.
within the top 10, again, not like some of my ones didn't make the top 10, right? But if you ask me to pick up on a couple, curiosity made it,
Hmm.
decision making made it,
Hmm.
listening and energy.
Hmm.
Maybe
Energy,
energy,
passion, whatever. Yeah, yeah.
passion as well. So
Oh, so
I
that's different than energy. What's the
correct,
difference?
correct. So passion, the ones who answered passion was about how they loved the love of the sport, the love for coaching. The
Mm.
energy was about the dance and the collaboration between the two people. How do you adapt, and how do you manage energy? How do you those first 7 seconds when you walk in the room? That's not passion, that's energy.
Yeah, gotcha,
So
gotcha.
that's the subtle difference there. And it's probably the number one thing, I guess, if people were to give me feedback about my coaching style, is my energy.
Hmm.
And a part of it does come a little bit innately, come from a big family. And like I said, growing up in different countries, you have to understand and read people. And I think it is one of my superpowers that I'm really proud to be able to understand the dance between a group, an audience. And it does relate to one of my favorite coaching words, with itness. Have you heard of that one before?
No, but I
Right.
go ahead.
You get it. Eyes in the back of your head, right? So
Yeah,
yes, I'm having a one-on-one here, while I can sense that everything stops
yeah.
just because I'm having you know, pulling someone out and giving some feedback here. So with itness is one of the ways that you can work on your energy. You have to be able to not multitask. It's more of a energy. It's being able to have that peripheral vision and be able to address, when the time is right, certain things at certain times, to have that dance, which is
You know,
such an
I
important.
love that. I'm so happy I asked the difference because I love that idea of energy and the components, this relatedness and this connection, and I think there's also this organization and competence and presence that's about that energy, right? And you think about, right, all of us coaches have bad days. And it's like the day you're a little late and you didn't quite plan as well and you're not quite set up on time. Your players, your athletes sense that energy. That coach isn't quite here today, and your coach is kind of maybe winging it a little more than a more planned day or whatever it is. They sense that, and the best coaches never make people feel like that. The best. I thought of my friend was an assistant for the Irish national team in soccer football for a guy, and a famous Italian coach named Trapattoni. And I said, what was it about him and made him special? And he didn't use the word energy, but it's exactly what he was talking about. He said, when he walked into the room, you just felt like it was all going to be okay. He's got this. And he's like, and it's just remarkable that everyone go, huh, okay, we're good. And that's something.
And to bring home the point, I worked with an elite Scottish netball team where we did their values. And we, of course, as you know, we came up with an acronym. We were the can-cans, so which was, da, 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 da,
Hmm.
which stood for courage, ambition, and we flipped the N upside down for unity.
Mm.
And one of our behaviors was we called it white line fever. So there was this white line on the practice court, and there was a backpack full of bricks on the outside of the practice court. And when you stepped over the line, whatever was going on for you before you had a phone call, you had
Hmm.
an argument with your partner or whatever it might be, once you stepped over that line, the behavior was that you wouldn't bring it onto the court, onto the pitch, onto the field.
Love it.
And if you did, you had to go back, put the backpack on of bricks until you were ready to let it go.
I
So
love it.
it was a visual, it was a practical, it was a tangible behavior because I think sometimes that's the other thing with values and behaviors, it gets a bit lost in culture.
Yeah.
So it was something easy that related specifically to unity as a team. And guess what? The energy changed. The vibe on the practice court, on the pit, on the court, in on game day was different.
Yeah, it's a signal, it's a symbol, it's all these things. Yeah, I love it. I get to see myself as a coach going, go pick up that backpack and don't come back until you're ready to go. Awesome. Emma,
Love it.
tell people how they can best connect with you, get your books, watch your TED Talk, all that stuff, and we'll obviously put everything in the show notes as well.
Thank you. Yeah, you can just check out my name, emmadoyle.com.au, because my mum always tells me to go home. And also I have coachm.cc. So either of those two websites will have all my contact detail. And I put out lots of stuff on LinkedIn as another great way just to reach out. And
Mm-hmm.
happy to support coaches always.
Awesome. And yeah, the book is What Makes a Great Coach, TED Talk, Unleashing Female Potential. Emma, thanks so much for being on the Way Champions podcast. We loved having you on.
Thank you so much. And I appreciate all your listeners for listening.
Thank you all for listening again. Thanks to Emma Doyle. www.emmadoyle.com.au is her website and best way to connect. And just really interesting stuff there. Love the qualities of the best coach and this idea of someone who listens. Just looking at my notes here. This concept of asking why questions after things went well and what questions after things didn't go so well. What a cool concept that is. What a nice thing for you to go try at your next practice, right? At your next thing. And then of course are things that, she wish her teenage self knew as well was really cool. So tons of great stuff there. Thank you to our friends at Sprocket Sports. Thank you to our Patreon podcast champions and Change the Game Project premium members. Thank you to all of you who have been ordering our books, Champion Teammate book or coaching books or the Champion Sports Parent book, all that. Every Moment Matters, Win the Day, Lead with Love. We really appreciate that. So going out there. Oh, yeah. And thank you to all of you who subscribe to this and who share this. And because if this podcast really resonated with you, share it with one person, two people. And that's how our influence spreads. And that's how we make sure it's not neutral. That each week we can influence another coach, another parent, another athlete in a positive way. All right. So thanks for listening, everyone. See you again next week.